Hi everyone, I'm Dan Genovese and welcome to Rum Runner Dan's. Today we're going to be making a classic cocktail, the New York Sour.
Oh, blow the man down, bullies, blow the man down. Give me way, hey, blow the man down. Blow the man down, bullies, blow him away. Give me some time to blow the man down.
So the New York Sour is one of those mysterious drinks that we're not really sure where it started or if it evolved over time or how it really came to be as we know it today. So really, according to Dave Wondrich in the 1850s, they found a handwritten menu that had on it a New York Sour. So we know that it was around then, but we don't know what it was really like then. We don't know if it was really whiskey, sour mix, and wine like we know it today. We do know that in Chicago it was called the Continental Sour, and that was really thought of more because it had wine on it. So they thought it was something that they were trying to make that was a little bit more French. But we know that it wasn't made in New York City, but it bears the name of the city. So really, it goes by so many other names. It has the Southern Sour, it has the Claret Snap, and it constantly seems as though it was an evolutionary cocktail, which in and of itself doesn't surprise people so much. I mean, we lost so much in terms of the pre-prohibition cocktail because really bartending at that time was like apprenticeship. You really had to learn and watch and stand at the hip. It was very much like, a trade, a craft, where you join like a guild kind of mentality and you really learn from someone who was really, really good at it. So prior to the cocktail revolution that happened, there wasn't a lot of sharing of this information and a way to formalize it to anyone. They were closely guarded secrets and techniques and methods that only a few distinguished people know. The reason why Jerry Thomas, the person behind David Wondrich's great book and Bible, is so famous is because he was the first one to really write most of this stuff down. Whether he actually created or influenced all those drinks is really unknown. But either way, we have to be really thankful for him because he did write stuff down and we would have lost so much more if it hadn't been for him. And likewise, if it wasn't for Dave Wondrich and his work, we wouldn't actually have practical measurements for a lot of the drinks that we have today. We're going to get into making the drink today. So the drink today is shaken. So we're going to use a cocktail shaker for this. And normally, let's talk a little bit about ingredients. This one's simple. We're using bourbon, and the bourbon I'm using today is Four Roses bourbon. Use any bourbon that you like. All I ask is that you get yourself good bourbon. Lemon juice, simple syrup, we're using wine today, and also we're going to be using something a little bit different here, which is Miss Better Bitters Miraculous Foamer. And they actually hit the name right with the Miraculous Foamer, and I'll show you why when we're actually get into making the drink. So, least expensive, most expensive. So 1 ounce of lemon juice. Okay. Next, we're going to do half an ounce of simple syrup. I use 2 to 1. I like it. Comes out real nice in this. Okay. Next, we're going to do some of our Miss Better Bitters Miraculous Foamer. So this calls for about 1/3 of this whole thing filled up. I got about that right now. Just go ahead and give it a squeeze in there. Perfect. And the great part about this is you treat it, after you put it in, you treat it like an egg white. So it's actually real easy to use. Now, last one is our bourbon. 2 ounces of our Four Roses Kentucky bourbon. All right. Now, we're going to use a technique that we haven't used here on the Rum Runner yet. It's called dry shaking. So what is dry shaking? Dry shaking involves shaking the cocktail without ice. So when you dump this into here, you're going to do the seal. Now, here's where it can go terribly wrong. When you hear of the story of bartenders having cocktails go all over them, It's normally when they were dry shaking. So when you do this, you definitely want to make sure that you give it a good seal, all right? Then after that, you want to make sure that you have your thumb on the back part of it and that your hands are holding both tins. Now you're going to be shaking this for a little bit longer than you normally would. It's going to be about 30 seconds. Wouldn't hurt to do all the way up to a minute, because then we're going to shake it again with ice. So I'm going to go ahead and seal this, and we're going to give it a shake. Nice and quiet. Okay, now I'm done. Now normally I have to hit this with the heel of my hand here to pop the seal. I'm actually going to show you something. You don't have to do that with this one. If you just give it a good squeeze on both tins, if you're using tins, squeezes right apart. That's why it's very important that you actually hit and get a good seal on this, because you can imagine if you aren't holding this tight enough, this can come flying out. Now, next thing that we're going to do is we're going to shake this with ice. So I pour the drink back into the small tin first, and there's already some foam in there, not a lot. A little trick that I like to do here when I'm shaking with foam or with egg whites. So I do small cube in there, large cube, okay? Now take the drink, pour it in. Gonna give it a second. You're gonna wait to hear for a crack. All right, now we give it a hard shake for 15 seconds. All right. That one I actually had a break. Sure we get all that cocktail out into the bottom. This actually gets served inside of a rocks glass, all right? I have my nice clear ice cube here. I use this, I'll put a link below of where you could actually get the ice system to make this. It's kind of cool to make your own clear ice. It's really nice to have in a cocktail like this too. So, Hawthorne strainer, fine mesh strainer. Double strain this into our old-fashioned glass. Look at the foam on that. Isn't that amazing? As soon as I heard about this stuff, I tried it. Couldn't believe it. How good it was. It was actually as good as having like real egg whites. So love it. So a New York Sour typically has the foam white top, has the yellow drink on the bottom, and right in the middle is this nice dark red wine. A little bit tricky to do, but I'm going to show you an easier way of doing it. For this, a drier red wine is better. Something like a Malbec, Shiraz. You can use a Cab. You know, use what you like and use a brand that you like. It's not that prescriptive. As long as it's a drier red wine, it'll work nice here. You don't want something too sweet in terms of a red wine, because it won't work well with the drink. It'll just sweeten it up and it won't taste right. So I'm going to measure out an ounce here. And the type of jigger that I have here is just kind of like a measuring cup jigger. The reason why I like it so much, it has this little spout on the front of it. Now what you need to do is you're going to grab bar spoon. You can use a regular spoon to do this too. Now, the rock of ice that's in here is actually floating on top. So what I want to do is take the tip of my bar spoon and lay that on the ice. You don't want to push the ice down, but you just want it to touch. Then we're going to take this. We're going to go ahead and get the tip of that on there and the tip down there, and slowly pour it. As it starts to go, it's going to pull it across that ice cube there. Real nice and easy. Don't go fast, not a race. Cool thing is when you make these for people and you do this, actually doing it slower gives them a little show. So don't feel the need to go quick with it. Go nice and slow. Trick is to keep contact between this, the spoon, and the ice the whole time. Makes it easy. Okay, all right, there you go. And if you go back and forth like I did a couple of times, what you'll end up with is it'll look like a tiny little heart on top too. Doesn't always look perfect, but it's cool. So that was my trick for doing this. I noticed a bunch of other ways of doing this online. You could use a speed pour. Actually, Greg from Titan from How to Drink uses a speed pour for it. He recommended it. I have had success with that. I just warn you to be careful because sometimes I notice that I don't control because I can't see the wine come out of the bottle sometimes as easy. So I went too fast and it just mixed as opposed to having it come out slower and being nice. What I do is one of my Woodrow coasters. I love these coasters. They're so cool. And actually here, so you guys can take a look here. They're actually different designs too. So I'll put a link below to pick those guys up. They're awesome. I love these coasters. Just gonna put that on there. So there you guys have it. That is our New York Sour. Let's go ahead and give it a taste. Oh yeah. Yeah, I mean it's such a good drink. All right, so taste that you're getting here is, it tastes just like a normal sour, the Miraculous foamer that we're using. It really just adds this texture component to it. So it gives the drink like a creaminess. That's what that nice foam that you have there on the top. And when you're drinking the drink and you drink some of that and you get that foam, it's like a creaminess to it, almost like a dairy component, without that dairy flavor. Now, the rest of it, it's fantastic. Lemon playing real nice in here with the bourbon, as well as the simple syrup playing real nice in here, sweetening up. The wine in here, like I said, you got to use the right wine that you really like. This one works really well with this. I've had a lot of success with Malbec. It's probably my favorite to put inside of here. I just didn't happen to have one. Personally, I always like to make my New York Sours with the Miraculous foamer, but in most recipes that you'll see for it, it is completely optional. So you don't have to go ahead and use that. But I recommend it because it gives it the drink a great look to it. It gives it an added texture component. And I think that really helps to elevate the drink a little bit more. So there you have it, everyone. That is the classic New York Sour. Until next time, everybody, Akole Maluna. Yeah, that's a good drink. Taking that with me.